Hello, my name is Lily, and I'll be analysing the very first Legend of Zelda game using Jesse Shell's elemental tetrad theory. The tetrad describes 4 basic concepts that is needed to make a satisfying experience. This tetrad is separated into 4 categories, beginning with the more visible aspect, which is the aesthetics of the game. The aesthetics are visuals and all the things that relate to our senses. The game's mechanics, which are the rules of the game and how it works. The story, being the sequence of events leading up to the end of the game, and then delving into the less visible, being the technology for the game. I'll begin by discussing the game's mechanics, which I strongly believe is the most focused element of the game. This is because of the immersion Legend of Zelda brings us through mostly combat and open world experience. The first Legend of Zelda, it is famously known for being one of the first open-world games, which is expressed by the rapidly changing scenes whenever the player touches the edge of the screen. Although, when playing the game for the first time, it can be perceived as quite difficult, it is very easy to become immersed into the gameplay. When the game begins, the player controls Link from a top-down perspective and initially starts with nothing, like in most Zelda games. We are first presented with a big black square that seems like it was placed there to prompt the player to check it out. This invokes uncertainty and curiosity, especially for a player who has never played the game before, as we are unable to know what awaits within, but are still wanting to find out regardless of the outcome, especially as a player would have nothing to lose. The first enemy we face in the game is not just one, but multiple enemies, that spawn in groups of 3 or 4 on each scene. These enemies are only minor and can be killed in 1 or 2 hits. In order to kill an enemy, for the average beginner at least, it could take at least half a life to kill 1 or 2 enemies, with the player only starting with 3 lives. Upon death, the already acquired items are kept with the player, however is returned to the starting point of the game, which creates determination to carry on playing, particularly if they were facing a dungeon and die halfway through completing it. In the dungeon, there is a vast amount of enemies, which, when killed, may drop keys or gems. The keys unlock other doors within the dungeon, which eventually lead to a boss and possibly another weapon. This may encourage the player to keep entering dungeons and gaining stronger weapons in order to become more powerful and kill enemies with these. The enemies within the dungeon can seem overwhelming, but the player's initial weapon has the ability to hurl it at an enemy at a distance for a few times, which can be a great help to completing the dungeon. The reason that this is because hitting enemies at a distance decreases the chance of taking damage from that certain enemy, creating more motivation for the player to want to keep playing, as they likely want to keep their character alive. The game has a seemingly endless advance to explore, most of which is accompanied by monsters. However, there can be up to 8 hidden dungeons found within the game, each housing pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom, in which the player is asked to find at the beginning of the game. Once all of these are collected, the player is allowed to access the final dungeon to defeat the boss and rescue Zelda, with that being the main story and goal of the game after all. In conclusion, you can see how the points made relate to the game mechanics and make up the wider majority of the game and how it makes the game the way it is today. We gain a clear understanding of how these aspects are laid out to make the game fun to play, and create a good overall experience for the character as well as reaching that satisfying final goal at the end.